And boom, live we are. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. So, interesting stream I have for you guys tonight. If you guys have heard of the term double dipping before, in the past, it's been kind of known as moonlighting. And you could consider it basically the same thing today, but there's a couple reasons why I wanted to have this stream. And if you guys can see, I got several people here to interview, all of which are either software developers, engineers, or in a similar type of field, and all of which are working multiple jobs. So, me personally, I've seen not just with these fellas, but with a lot of other people and on the internet, things I've been reading. I'm seeing like an uptick, I guess you could say, an increase in the amount of people working more than one job. And this isn't. And by the way, guys, I'm not talking about just like, hey, I'm working as a server at restaurant A, and then after that, I go to be a server at restaurant B. That's pretty normal. I'm talking about like actual jobs, okay? Like full-fledged engineering jobs, which, you wouldn't think it would be a normality to work multiple engineering jobs full-time. But it's actually becoming that way. And it's kind of like, it's kind of an alarming thing to me, and in a good way and a bad way. And there's reasons for both that. And these fellows are going to talk to you guys about that tonight. But if you guys are interested in hearing about it, if you guys have any specific questions you want to ask these folks, go ahead and put the question in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to it, okay? So, guys, welcome to the stream. And first and foremost, like one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about are the reasons for this double dipping, for this moonlighting, for working multiple jobs. And we can start with Ron Burgundy. Perhaps what is like the biggest reason for you, sir, that you decided to do this?
So I've kind of multiple reasons. Obviously, the biggest one being monetarily. The dollar, as we know, doesn't really go as far as it used to. And if you really want to get ahead at a reasonable pace, you're gonna have to figure out more ways to get some cash flow. Another reason is I kind of like to diversify in skill set. I don't like to get pigeonholed in one direction necessarily. And this kind of affords me the opportunity to work with, different tech stacks or just different technologies in general.
Okay. I think those are all pretty good. Both those pretty good reasons. But the first one you said was it's monetarily, right? So you said one of the things that you cited was that the dollar is not really worth what it used to be, right? And that is probably one of the things that's probably one of the reasons that I'm assuming a lot of this is happening more frequently. But let me ask you this too before we move on to the next one and get their answer. You're working 2 full-fledged engineering jobs, correct?
Yeah, 2 W-2 full-time positions.
Okay. You don't have to tell us the actual numbers, but like ballpark range, what like per year, what are you making at either or both of them, if you don't mind? And you don't have to give us an exact amount. You can just give us a ballpark range.
Right now for both jobs, I'm just north of the 200,000 a year mark.
And that's combined, right?
Yeah, combined.
Okay. So, guys in the audience tonight, one thing I wanted to note is, so these are 2 multiple 6-figure jobs, right? And that should seem like it's a lot of money, right? But maybe it's not as much money as it might have been 1, 2, 3, 10, especially 10 years ago. So it's interesting that you said that, because that's something that I kind of had expected. But okay, thank you. And then next, I guess we'll ask Mr. Upstanding Citizen over here. Mr. Upstanding Citizen, what would you say is your top reasoning or top reasons for why you wanted to do this, to work multiple jobs?
Clearly the money, being able to save up more and be able to live more the life that you want. Like the last one said, dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, so it's something to be able to really make yourself more well off than you were before, so you can save money and have a better retirement.
Okay. And this, I know pretty much the same situation as you. You have 2 very high paying for what most people would consider like. In fact, I won't say most people would consider this. I would say everyone, if we just went 5 years in the past, everyone 5 years ago would have considered $100,000 job to have been like an amazing thing, right? So, okay. Thank you. And then I guess next, Mr. Scott over there, what are your reasons for doing the double dip, partaking in said double dip?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, man.
All right, perfect. Yep. So my reasoning was, all the members in your group know this guy, but I had a pretty awful manager. Boomer Bill was his name. And
Yep.
I just kind of had thought that double dipping is a pretty great strategy for you to fill out a new job, because what you can do is you can keep your old job without quitting it, but this new job you're getting, you can maybe work for them for 3 months and just kind of see how it is. You'll never really know kind of how a job is until you've worked for it for a while for real. So I thought that was great, where you can kind of test the job out first, and if the job is like kind of weird, the new job, you could actually potentially just kind of quit it and keep your old job, so you can experiment with it. So you got like a lot more job security and a lot more freedom with double dipping.
Okay. So you mentioned money in the beginning too, but you brought up something that other people haven't so far, and that's kind of like the job security, right? And I remember back when we were discussing the stuff that you had with Boomer Bill, quote unquote Boomer Bill, but that was a hairy scenario to be in, and it's interesting that this is a thing that people are doing, guys, not just to benefit them monetarily, right? Like obviously, the money thing is a big deal, but for you guys out there who don't know, in fact, like one of the previous, it was either a video or a stream that I did, not like maybe 1 to 3 videos ago. I don't remember which one. I kind of brought up this guy's story right here, and I didn't say it completely, but Scott, I went over basically how you were in a situation where you had basically like a really, really bad job situation you felt uncomfortable at and miserable, and rightfully so. Like the guy was, I think I did mention the guy was like calling you at Sunday at like 8:00 at night, off work hours, right? And like when you're in that situation, guys, if anyone's experienced anything like out there like that before, it's not fun. You're constantly worried, like, hey, if I don't do something right, like are they gonna fire me? And then you have to be worried about your well-being afterwards, because like you're using this income to live. And it seems to me, guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, it seems to me that this isn't just benefiting you monetarily, but also like you kind of have a little bit more power, right? If you get into a situation like that again, well, okay, like that's fine. I'll just continue working this other job over here that I have. Is that kind of like correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And like, not even like just with bad managers, but even with like job security for jobs. Like maybe if you join a job that doesn't work out for you and it lays you off, well, that's not a problem. You have a another job. So it's pretty much
Touché.
like foolproof. Yeah, for your job security. It's a great strategy. Not
That's
just for
a
the
very
money.
good point.
Yeah, not just for
Like,
the money, but exactly.
How many news articles are we seeing right now where somebody gets hired for the job and then they're laid off right after? What happens if they quit their other job to go to that job and then we're immediately let go?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's becoming like, especially in like recent times, it's becoming pretty all too common, right? And we all kind of know. And some of the things that I've talked about on my stream, it looks like Mr. Jimmy two jobs disconnected for a second, so we'll wait till he gets back in and ask him. Here he is. So one of the things that I kind of talk about on my stream a lot, especially like way back when I started this channel, was like the whole family company thing. It's a really nice thing, or it was a really nice thing 20, 30 years ago, back when like our parents and our grandparents were working in the workforce in their prime. But it's not the case anymore, right? Especially in 2019 and early 2020, when we saw like all the craziness go down, like all these companies like were just firing people that they had for years, like good employees who had adopted that company family thing. They would just fire them over like a Zoom call, right? So
Yeah.
pretty not like pretty different times where we're living in right now. Okay, so The next is you, Mr. Jimmy 2 times. What would you say? What would you say are your primary reasons or reason for wanting to do this? To wanting to work multiple jobs to do the double dip?
Yeah, definitely. So I've had 2 times where I made unprecedented money off of a staffing contract, and got laid off from both. And the most recent one was this March, and I knew that when I got back into the workforce, I was never ever going to put myself in a position again where I was merely dependent off of one source of income, one main source of income. Wasn't going to happen. And after getting back onto a contract, I also found myself a full-time job. Kind of sussed out actually that the people who worked there were also doing the same thing, and that it was a great environment to do so. That everyone understood and supported it, and they were still really great at coding, and really smart guys. So they had put that together as well. So I kind of fell into that. And now if you think about it in like a dating situation, that's my main, even though that one pays a little bit less. The other thing is that in the negotiation process, I mentioned that I was making more money at my other job, which allegedly I quit, right? As far as they knew, or as far as upper management knows. But in doing so, I was actually going to negotiate myself about $15,000 or $20,000 more, because I was saying I was going to have to take a step down to come over there, and I had done exceptionally well in the interview. So I just saw that leverage right out of the gate for a variety of reasons. And so together at both of those positions, I'm batting about 280. But then I think about what happens after taxes, and that's about 192 to 200. So, well, once again, that's probably about the equivalent of like 100K 3 years ago, or 120K. If you look at real inflation, if you look at the price of cars, the price of homes, price of rent, everything like that, living in a major city as I do, it was just a no-brainer.
Right. Okay, so pretty much so far, like, everyone's kind of on the same page with the reasons behind it, right? And like, I gotta say, I understand completely. And one thing I'll say, guys, people that are listening to this, I know all these guys personally. Like, I've literally have met them all in real life before. Spent substantial time with the majority of them in the real world. So not just like, these aren't just like shadowy supercoders that I've met on the internet. Okay. And I can tell you, each one of these guys, they're really smart, and they're also really hardworking. They're probably like, and not to fluff you guys up, but these guys are probably like in the top 10% of like ambitious workers in their age group. Okay. So this should kind of say something to everybody out there as to like just how crazy things are now and how different things are. That what I believe, guys, if we would have taken any one of you guys 20 years ago, stuck you at the bottom entry level of a company when you were like 18, by the time you guys are like where you are at right now, as far as time spent working places, and this whole old previous like social contract of like family company, take care of everybody, not do not screw them before they screw us kind of thing, which is that's basically the mentality that companies, most companies these days are kind of like into. I think you guys would probably all be like way up in like the at least like upper management, if not in like C-suite positions. Honest to God, because I know you guys are all hardworking. So that's something to the audience to keep in mind. And if you guys doubt anything I mean by that, I'm not going to dox any of these dudes, but I can definitely give you guys some proof without doxing them that they are all very hardworking people. Okay, so the next thing I want to ask is like 2 questions in one. Is it doable? Is the first question, but obviously, it appears that it's doable because you guys are all doing it, right? And I guess instead of me asking, is it doable? Like, how doable is it for, let's just say, and I'm not talking about you guys, like the average person. And then also, what are the things you guys have to do in order to accomplish this? Like, what are some things that you need to have on the back of your mind going through the day when you're at work, or maybe like bouncing in between meetings? And also, like, one thing that I'm sure that you guys don't do is like go out when you're at your, you're not getting an email or an instant chat to all your coworkers. Hey, I'm working another job. I got to get this other meeting. right? So like some things that I guess you guys would do is kind of like safeguards to keep all that like steady and not crossing any wires, I guess. So Mr. Ron Burgundy, you first. Is it doable? What do you think?
I definitely think it's doable. Sustainability could be, that could be a different story depending on, the specific industry in IT that you work in. For me personally, it's pretty sustainable. Like my job, I believe, is a little bit on the slower side, at least one of them, and the other one is a little bit on, I guess, the faster side. So, I've got a separate computer for both jobs, essentially. And basically what I do is I kind of just sync my calendars, whether it's like Google Calendar or it's, Outlook or whatever the case may be. Typically, I like to sync my older jobs calendar because, I've got a little bit more tenure with that company. So there's not as much question going around like, hey, where are all these meetings coming from? Because, it's kind of the nature of the older job. And then the newer job, I kind of roll with the punches there. You know, some meetings do conflict, but I'm sure as a lot of us can attest, not every meeting is absolutely essential. So you can kind of like double up on meetings sometimes, and just kind of pay attention to the more important one. Um, so yeah, I mean it's definitely doable. Sustainability, it kind of depends on what type of person you are. I kind of like being in the grind, so it's a little bit more sustainable for me. But it might not be for everybody, and that's for sure.
Okay. Mr. Upstanding Citizen, is it doable?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Depending on the type of work and how intense, certain periods might be, could definitely affect how sustainable it is. In my case, one role is a little more passive when things come in, and then the other one will be more active. So I suspect I shouldn't have too much of an issue with mine. But I mean, no matter what, I feel like I can always stop one if needed and go from there. But the point is that I'm a pretty hard worker, so I'm gonna keep this going for as long as I can.
Okay. Mr. Jimmy Two Jobs.
Oh, there we go. I'm back on. So yeah, for me, it's exactly like that because especially because one of my jobs is set up that way from the team lead, who also does the same thing. But also what I do is I sync my calendars. There's very few conflicts, but where there are, I can find a way around it generally because like most meetings aren't absolutely essential. The other thing I do is I automate a lot of other parts of my life because in my part of the software cycle, it's actually more hands-on, especially some of the technologies that I touch. I'm actually learning them as I go. So I do actually work probably about 12 to 14 hours per day between both of them, and on the weekends as well. So it's about 6 days a week. That helps to make up for a lot of it because I'm actually just doing more than most people. Most people are still working the 9 to 5. I'm doing more at both, and as a pipeline is running, I'm fixing some code on my other computer for the other job. So that helps a lot in terms of manageability. But I would also say that you have to automate every other part of your life. If you have a girl in your life, have her help out with meal prep or, get a meal prep service. It's going to take away a lot of dead weight, get your dry cleaning delivered, get your laundry delivered. You have the money to do it now and still have a lot left over if you negotiated right and you put yourself in the right position with both jobs. So that's absolutely essential.
Okay. Scott, doable? Longevity? What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's definitely doable. Sustainability wise, yeah, I guess it just depends on how much you want to stress yourself out. But it's totally worth it, I think, for sure, for the money and the security. As far as if it's doable or not, I think it's very doable. We keep talking about developer jobs when it comes to double dipping, but really there's a lot of other guys out there doing this that aren't devs. Like there's people in sales doing this where they do sometimes have a lot of double book meetings, but they still manage it. And yeah, not just developer. I'd say developer is obviously easier because you probably won't have that much double book meetings and you won't have that much calendar mishaps. but I'd say it's totally doable. And the way I do it is I do have more of the sales kind of role, like I was mentioning. So for me, I just have to have a good sound setup, like a good tech sound setup where I can switch between meetings really effectively. I even have a good sound setup where I can actually hear 2 meetings at the same time, which is really useful. But yeah, there's plenty of ways. But 100% is definitely doable.
Okay. Okay. And before I ask some more questions related to that, Mark Phil with the comment of the night, I feel like a bad boy watching this. This shouldn't be like, it's kind of like a no thing, right? But it like if everybody in the world was realistic and we didn't have all these like kind of for the most part nonsensical red tape bureaucratic processes in place, this shouldn't be a problem as long as like both job A and both job B things get done and they're done on time, not broken. There's no major issues. But anyway, real quick, guys, something I want to show to you guys and then also everyone in the audience, and also part of the reason that I kind of wanted to talk about this is this article right here. So you guys can see, it says something snaps in the U.S. labor market. Full part-time workers plunge as multiple job holders soar. So there's a graph right there. Ooh, fancy graph. But if we look at this, and let's just like pick this apart really quick. It says something odd emerges when looking at June payrolls report. So June, all right, we're in August. This was not very long ago. It says on one hand, the closely followed establishment survey came in red hot, all right, and despite dropping modestly from May, it still printed some 100,000 above the median consensus expectations at 372K versus the median consensus of blah, 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 blah. And with wages in line with expectations rising, it was enough for many to conclude that calls of a recession are premature because, after all, you can't enter a recession when jobs are rising by almost 400,000. And the article says this is true, but there's a problem, okay? And the problem emerges when looking at it more detailed, if less closely watched household survey. Unlike the establishment survey, the June jobs change was actually a striking 315,000 drop. And after April plunge, 353,000. The June drop was actually the biggest going back into March 2020 crash. We were talking about March 2020 time period at the beginning. Ratios, blah, 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 blah. And so they're asking, so what's going on here? We'll start at the top. We'll find some discrepancy. And it says it's giving two different numbers here, the establishment survey and the household survey. So they're kind of like completely different numbers there, right? And if we dig down into here, where is it? In fact, jobs gained. Okay, so, but wait, there's more, because digging in even deeper, we find this drop in household survey employment is a result of both full-time and part-time jobs. In fact, as shown below, since March, the U.S. has lost 70,000 full-time employees and 462,000 part-time employees. What is the offset reasoning? And they're claiming to be multiple job holders or people who have more than one job. So I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about or reading through this entire article, but I'll post a link for this article in the YouTube live chat for you guys in the audience to see that on your own time whenever you want. So, fellas, what do you guys have to say about that? Is this is becoming a more normal thing, right? I mean, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in here that I know who are doing it. Are you, Scott? You said that you saw that. I mean, I'm assuming you're hearing some other people that are doing a similar thing, even in just like sales, right? So, and without going in order, and you guys can kind of all talk. So just try to be orderly-ish about it. How common is this, guys?
I think it's a hidden secret, to be honest.
Hidden?
Yeah, I think a lot, like at my other job, the one I got hired for afterwards, it's now become kind of like my main job. My boss said, this is the job you retire from, and with wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's not the job. It's the job. But I think seeing it now, especially within our little network, I'm just seeing one person and then the next and the next and the next adopting this. So I have to assume within the broader economy, within the broader, like at least the country, and perhaps overseas in the West, this is becoming super common phenomena.
Yeah, I definitely agree you on that part. My newer job, I feel like there's an undertone of people doing the same thing, but it's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell situation. So, and even in my old job, I mean, there's, typically we only get assigned one or two projects, but some people are kind of busy throughout the entire day, and it's like, are you really working that hard on that? Like, I know the workload of that job, so I kind of feel like it's not exactly congruent with the demands of that certain job. So there might be, both sides of the token, there might be people doing the same thing in both of my jobs.
Anyone else?
Yeah, one thing I was gonna kind of ask a question. Maybe the group can think about it, but this is definitely getting more and more popular, and I wonder if it would get to the point with recession and other crazy things going on, incentivizing people to do this. I wonder if it's going to get normalized a little bit to the point where employers are going to start taking action in certain ways, if that makes sense.
I disagree. I think that will be part of it, but I think this is the way I could foresee it is any other technological change or societal change. There's some pushback, but then just like with remote work, we just saw there's pushback, but then companies are like, well, hey, everyone wants to do this, and everything still gets done. So it's really not our responsibility to ensure that they aren't working other jobs or even care, as long as they're getting what needs to be done. That's how I see. There'll be a schism.
Oh yeah, exactly.
When you say take action, do you mean like taking action like during like the recruitment process to like, hey, you're not ever going to do this kind of thing, are you? Like, or do you mean like currently when you're in the job, or what? What do you mean by that?
Well, I've done some research in those kind of online groups I was telling you about. It's a movement pretty much. There's guys doing this. They don't call it double dipping, but they call it something else. But there are some states out there. New York is, I think, the most notable. But there's some states that have something in their law called the faithless servant doctrine. It sounds horrible, but basically, it's something in their law that makes it to where if the employer can catch you, I think, moonlighting like this, they can somehow get you to legally get you to pay back all the wages that you acquired while you were double dipping on them. But again,
sounds like a New York thing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
it? Florida, good old Florida, you don't have to worry about Florida though. Florida is one of the states that doesn't participate in that.
Jesus Christ, indeed. I mean, my thinking behind it is like it's simple. It's like I guess Mr. Roy F is in New York. If so, yeah, get out, dude. Or go close to Harry Zekos over there because he seems to be in a little bit of a better bubble. But like, if you're in a situation like this, and you're able to do it, okay, all companies, let's just say you're just double dipping with two companies. Both companies get the fullest extent of what you need. So specifically for like, I don't know, like a software engineer, you're not technically, if you're in a salaried job, you're not really paid by the hours. Most of these places and people by now, even if they pretend like that's not the case, it's more about the quality and your knowledge base, your skill set that you can accomplish these things. So if you need to build some area of code, let's say you have like 3 user stories that you need to finish before the end of the sprint, you finish all 3 of them, and maybe you even go above and beyond. You pick up 2 extra stories in the backlog, you do those too. And the other company, you're just doing everything exactly the same. Like, you're getting all the things done. Maybe you're finishing other stuff early. Not like you have to do that, but I'm just saying, like, an extreme case here, like, that shouldn't be something that's like wrong to do, in my opinion, especially in a country where we once kind of valued more freedom. I would say, gotta be scared to say that word on YouTube, but value people's freedom and not being kind of like intruding in people's personal lives, especially when it comes to like work and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of like that's a scummy thing. But I'm sure, dude. I'm sure that's not going to be like the only place that tries to do it. But kind of like what Mr. Jimmy Two Jobs said, I think just kind of like every other like social pushback that comes, I think inevitably it'll get quelled. But okay, guys, this has become more common. It seems like you guys are saying that, right? And it seems like you guys are saying that it's probably going to continue to be that way. What is wrong with, is it the economy? Is it this, like, the old versus the new social contract? Is it all the above? Is it what is there even anything wrong? Is this the right thing? Like, what is going on that kind of like necessitates this as the means to like move up? Because like I kind of said at the beginning of the stream, and I don't want to reiterate on this so many times, but like 10, 20 years ago, if you were an engineer, you had a 6-figure job. Like, you could have a family of like 4 kids, you could have a house and a boat, and you could have like a you know, your 401k that wasn't really a Ponzi scheme 401k like 401ks actually are. Because if you retired, you might have actually been able to reap the benefits from it. You probably had like an extra stash of cash that the wife didn't know about. The, you know, go and buy like some kind of fancy car or whatever, maybe 2 of them. But like, after working for, you know, a decade or 2, right? Is that like, what is going on? What do you guys think is like some reasons behind the necessity for this? And not that I'm not saying it's a necessity, but I can say I will agree with what they're saying in here. And one thing I've always said too is like, you never can really want to depend on just one income stream, especially after we've seen all like the craziness go on. So what's going on, guys? What do you think is the driving factors behind all this?
I think one of the big driving factors of when it happened was when 2020 happened and whatever we're calling it, Crab 19 or whatever. I don't want to get you in trouble, Josh, because we're still on YouTube. But
Thank you.
yeah, but when that happened, a lot of people had lost their jobs. Lockdowns happened, and the rise of remote work happened too. A lot of jobs, you know, commonly became remote work during that time. So I think a whole bunch of smart, crafty people kind of just came up with this loophole right here amidst that, if that makes sense. And the reasonings for it was, of course, what we just mentioned, you know, like job security down the toilet, recession coming through, and you know, problems with their employers as well, not treating them right. So I kind of think that's kind of what spurred it to become a phenomenon going on.
I would have to agree, but I would also like to reiterate that was the first break of the social contract, right? Because not the first, well, not the first, but it's one of many that we've continued to see. Like,
That's true.
You know, whether we can go back to right around the you know, 7-Eleven, the store getting closed down, but like right after that, there were several incursions of into freedoms which we previously enjoyed. I mean, I recall being a child and going to the terminal at the airport, just being able to walk in. If you're not flying, you didn't have to go through. I don't even know if there was security, I think, but it was very light, and then you could just go through and go to the terminal. All of these things, you could get a PO box with just giving a name on a piece of paper, and so this is slowly over the last, along with the number of different other geopolitical endeavors which we've undertaken in the last 20 years. It's just been the last erosion of the social contract. Whereas, you know, before you would work for that company and they'd be loyal to you, you'd be loyal to them, and you would also be paid in the 1960s, 1950s. You'd be paid in a somewhat stable currency. You know, you could count on all of that. All of those things were there, and now that people see that, oh, they just shut down all of these businesses, and my job just either went away or I working from home. The rules, the other side of the social contract is no longer being held up. So I think people are just negotiating that.
Yeah, I feel like they want the same mentality from way back then, but not providing the same end of the contract from
Good
their
point,
end.
dude.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, over the last, you know, couple years of recent events, they showed their hands, and basically made up their own rules, which just showed people that there are no rules, and you can kind of do whatever you want. So that's kind of the direction I think a lot of people are starting to head now. They're like, okay, well, all the stuff that they had told us were the rules this entire time actually were just completely made up. So why can't I just make up my own rules and do whatever I want to do?
So you guys kind of say this is maybe like a natural evolution as a means to combat all the for lack of a better word, negativity given to the average person who's just trying to work and be a hard worker and move up in life.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny that too, if you think about like there's an old Russian saying from, I don't even know if I could say the former name of that state, but the Russian say is they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. Well, this is just the modern iteration of that with smartphones and iPads, you know, and Wi-Fi and Web3. Like that's the modern iteration of that. We just have the new technology which facilitates that. But at least with this technology, we can still be productive when we're, you know, we're not really pretending to work. We are working. We're just pretending to be corporate drones when we're not.
Okay. A question for you guys from Mr. Eli says, do you guys think double dipping will become normalized once the boomer generation completely leaves the workforce and there's less of a workforce? What do you guys think about that?
I think for some industries, yes. Engineering and IT probably being the lead on that. But there are definitely still some industries like banking, for example, that, you know, I don't really ever think that's going to change for as long as that's going to be around. So.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that you could be a bank teller like in a physical branch, like two of them at the same time. But I think I get what you're saying by that. I would agree with that. What you said.
I would say that there's going to be pay raises commensurate with the double dipping for the other industries, because at least where those people are capable of moving to software or to something where they can double dip, there has to be incentive for them not to.
Right.
So I could see like plumbers and tradesmen and everything becoming much more expensive as they demand more because they can go elsewhere. I mean, you know, one of the guys here on this panel made that switch into software for that reason, away from a job like that. But if they want to be able to manufacture things and fix things and repair things, they're going to have those people, or to ship things, even like, you know, with the thing about like truckers. So I could just see that it becoming more of an inflationary driver as people try to keep up with the double dippers.
You guys have all made pretty much nothing but like really good points so far. So like I don't have anything that I can say that would negate any of that. You guys know that guy Meet Kevin from YouTube. He's got he's in California. He's got a pretty popular channel. He does finance stuff. Anybody familiar with him?
Yeah, he's a real estate guy, right?
He's like real estate stonks. He into crypto when crypto's cool, and then out of it when it's not cool. But the other day, when part of the reason that I wanted to do the stream, because I was listening to him, and he was saying that kind of something along the lines of what you were saying is people that are just trying to do the right thing and live by this old kind of like way of thinking. They got bit really hard, and you weren't like a couple of you guys were saying the same thing. Got bit really hard in the behind from being loyal, right? And at the same time, the money is losing value. The currency is not stable, and they're finding like the number one way to actually get a quote unquote raise is one, job hop, right? Which I've talked about that on the stream many times before, on multiple different times on this channel, because it's a fact. Like you're not going to get a $20,000 pay raise every single 1 to 2 years unless you just go to something bigger and better. But two was that, you know, having to work multiple jobs. And what if that weren't the case? What if like people actually rewarded hard work and merit off of just that hard work and merit, and you were able to get like a $20,000 a year raise as opposed to just having to go hop somewhere else? Because I mean, if one company can afford it, and I'm not saying that every single company can afford to give all their employees a $20,000 raise every year. Obviously, like if we're being realistic here, very few people would actually qualify for that. You guys probably would, because like I said earlier in the stream, probably top 10% of like hard workers in your age bracket, but those people would in that type of like, you know, in that type of situation. So a lot of it, I think I resonate with you guys a whole lot on all this. And like, I understand the purpose. I understand the reasoning behind it. And there's really nothing I can say that's like, hey, this is a bad thing. Harry Zico says, guys, inflation is going away. ... Come on, they just passed the inflation bill thing. ... You know, the thing. Oh yeah, we know the thing. Inflation, guys, is that something that you think will continue to increase and then thus possibly lead more people to be doing this double dipping, or no, or yes, or what?
Absolutely.
That's absolutely okay. Yeah, it was kind of I think that was kind of a dumb question right there, but easy answer. All right, guys. So if you've been watching this either live or on the repeat and you got something out of this, please go ahead, smash the like button. And if you have something that you want to say, maybe like a personal experience that you've done similar, maybe you're also double dipping, leave me a comment. Let me know what the situation is. And if you have your regular name and like picture on your YouTube account, just if you don't want to say that, you just say like, hey, a friend did X, Y, and Z. Let me know what and how much of this stuff actually resonate with people out there, or even if you have the desire to do this because of the things that these people in here are talking about tonight. Let me know. I'm generally interested in hearing what you guys have to say about that. And yeah, any final words, guys?
Yeah, just get into a field where you can do this to put yourself in the right position, because the rules don't really apply anymore as they used to, and it's best to adapt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing is, as we're talking about double dipping, there's also triple dipping or quadruple dipping. If you're a developer,
heard that.
You could, if you really want to stress yourself out, you can work, even more jobs than 2.
Yeah. No, dude, I know some dude from they're not a DD guy, but they're in like several, like 4 or 5 networks adjacent, removed over. The guy DM'd me on Instagram the other day, and he's like, hey, how many people do you know that have been like your students or have come through one of your programs and are like double dipping right now? I'm like, at this point, like a lot of them are doing it, so I really couldn't give you a number. And he's like, are they having any like issues with it? Because he said, and he was a developer, he said that he has a friend who lives out of the United States. All right. Now I don't understand how this dude does it, because apparently he's got this really intricate setup. And I'll tell you guys who it is. The person, not the person doing it, but the person who told me about this after the stream. But he's got someone who lives offshore. They're a U.S. citizen, lives offshore, has like 4 or 5 different jobs. I think like maybe 1 or 2 of them are W-2s. The rest of them are all like contracts. And he's hired on to do those jobs because of his resume and his background, because he's an engineer. And he's then outsourced those contracts and the other jobs, W-2s as well, to other people offshore. And he's like getting them to do it. He's like has like this like pseudo contracting business wrapped, like interlinked inside of a contracting business, interlinked inside of a contracting business. It's insane, which I thought.
I was going to mention that that's what I do with some of my stuff as well. Is that especially if you're in a network like DD, so get in that network. There's always younger, hungrier guys looking to take on what you can't if you're overbooked, or there's some ticket that you can't fill, or you don't know the technology. It's a good place to get linked up so that you can really maximize. But that's the next level.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and as always, guys, developerdirection.com for your learn to Kizode Nizids. All right, guys, I think that wraps it up for the night. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Smash the like the last 30 people in the comment section said, and we're out. See ya.